All right, it's 10:45, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you again, everyone, for coming to see. Again, this is our first breakout session for the day, Food System Resiliency Insights from Regional Food Hub. I'm joined today with Andrew Yoakam from the Puget Sound Food Hub, Sarah Pope from San Juan Islands Food Hub, Kyle Flack from Whidbey Island Food Hub, and Austin Becker from Farm Stand Local Foods. We're going to kick it off today by asking each of you to take about 3 to 5 minutes to share a little bit about your food hub that you work with, a little bit of the history. We have a really wide range here of how long you've been in operation, whether you do retail or wholesale. But just to give the attendees a sense of what's unique about your food hub and your region before we dive into the conversation. Do you want to start us, Sarah?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Pope. I'm with the San Juan Islands Food Hub. It's a new hub. We are less than a year old. We have been talking about having a hub in the San Juan Islands for years. We have unique challenges of geography. I think I can say that. I don't think there's probably another food hub anywhere where we have to rely on a ferry system, and it's quite as complicated, but we have managed to link up San Juan, Orcas, and Lopez Islands. And COVID really gave us the push to get it done. We use local food marketplace software, and it is capable of doing retail as well as wholesale. And so we just went for it, and we opened a retail market in April, brought it together really fast, and it's been super successful. This year we have a grant to start expanding into wholesale, so I'm really excited about the opportunities to partner with Whidbey and Puget Sound and start linking up a really strong and resilient regional food system.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm gonna pick on our other newer food hub, Kyle.
Yeah, I'm the president of the Whidbey Island Grown Cooperative, of which the food hub is a component. So we're kind of unique in that way, in that we're a sort of a, the cooperative has a mission that's a little bit larger than strictly a food hub, but the food hub has definitely been our focus and our first target. So we've, Whidbey Island Grown started sort of mostly as a branding and marketing effort. And then this last year it is incorporated into a farmers or a multi-stakeholder cooperative. We had initially intended to launch as a wholesale food hub, similar to the Puget Sound Food Hub. We started going through that process in March, so obviously everything changed. So our launch was all retail. We're doing strictly retail right now. We do have plans to do some wholesale, hopefully this year, and try to just, we have similar challenges as the San Juan. We still have a bridge, which is nice, but we're also, a really long stretched out island. So trying to access all those markets and, collaborate with all those producers, and, the logistics is tricky. We don't have ferries, but just trying to get everyone to communicate with each other. So, I think we're excited about the next year, and we're looking good.
Thank you, Kyle. And Austin.
Hey everyone, my name is Austin Becker, and I am with Farm Stand Local Foods based in Seattle. We are the only organization here that doesn't have food hub in our name, but I think most people would consider us, for all intents and purposes, a food hub. We are based, we just moved to a new warehouse down in Georgetown in Seattle. And so one of our probably unique challenges here is the cost of both leasing warehouse space and also labor of paying folks in the city. Obviously, everything's more expensive. And we serve farms primarily in King and Snohomish counties. So we talk about the 3 S valleys, the Sammamish, Snoqualmie, and Snohomish valleys. And we work with farms that face actually similar challenges that we do, being close to the city. The cost of labor is very high. The cost of equipment and supplies. King County is not necessarily known as a farming county, so a lot of our farms have to go outside the county to get fertilizer and soil amendments and all kinds of stuff. We primarily serve wholesale customers, and up until last year, that a big portion of that was made up by restaurants. Obviously, the whole world's changed, and we've had to shift a little bit. So we've found ourselves working with various hunger relief organizations, folks doing pop-up dinners, folks focusing more on retail. And we also just recently partnered with the organization that we are sharing a warehouse with called Pacific Coast Harvest. And they do home delivery of goods, which has been a huge opportunity for us to increase our purchasing power and access more and more customers. We have plans to bring on a few new producers this year in King County, Southern King County, and even down into Pierce County, and possibly even develop a pickup route down that way. So expanding our reach a little bit. And for the time being, we like to say we source everything from as close as possible. So not much stone fruit grows over here, so we go just east of the mountains or as close as we can and bring stuff in that way. So, and that's a rundown of Farm Stand Local Foods.
Thank you, Austin. And closing it up, Andrew.
Reese, thank you. Thanks to Sustainable Connections for putting this on. Really excited to be here. My name is Andrew Yoakam. I'm the general manager of the Puget Sound Food Hub. We're a farmer-owned cooperative based in Mount Vernon, Washington, so a little bit north of Seattle. We have about, we've got over 60 producers at this point that are a part of our cooperative. We added 15 just last year during the pandemic. So I'll get to this a little later on, but really excited about the momentum that we're experiencing in the marketplace and kind of the growth that our farmers are experiencing right now and hopefully looking forward to in the future as well. Let's see, a little bit of history on the Food Hub. Was formed about 10 years ago as a buying club in the parking lot of the Skagit Valley Food Co-op. A group of farmers got together basically to say, hey, how do we work together to expand our market instead of competing kind of in the small market that's available up here in Skagit County necessarily. So kind of grew organically, really grassroots movement. In fits and starts over the last 10 years, was formed officially as a cooperative in 2016. I came on as a general manager about 2 years ago. My history, just briefly, I was the operations manager for a retail grocery cooperative in Reno, Nevada for about 5 years. We had a small food hub down there. So before I came out here, I had a lot of experience in the cooperative world on the retail side and a little bit on the wholesale side. Speaking to Reese's prompt a little bit, we're exclusively wholesale at the Puget Sound Food Hub. So we go direct to those people that are then reselling directly to customers. We don't go direct to the customer that ends up using our product. So we're wholesale. A little bit more about us. We've got a small fleet of refrigerated box trucks that we run 3 days a week. As far south as Tacoma and as far north as the Canadian border. We do have a cross-dock partner that helps us get as far south as Olympia, just starting to kind of bridge that gap as well. We source exclusively from Western Washington, so west of the mountains, only from our delivery footprint. Basically, the counties located around the Puget Sound are a part of our sourcing footprint. So a hyper-local model, interested in championing local family scale farmers on this side of the mountains. Yeah, I guess maybe I'll leave it there. We excited to kind of dig in. We experienced, like I said, a lot of growth. I think we had over 70% growth last year in 2020 compared to 2019, which we're really happy about and pleased about, especially during the pandemic. We're proud of our ability to maintain at least another sales channel for our producers and farmer owners. Maybe beneficial, just briefly, I guess I can talk about our structure. So we've got a board of directors that hires, fires me, depending on my performance and my role. And that's made up entirely of farmers. So a really democratically controlled organization built by and for the people out there growing the food.
Thank you. Well, I'm gonna kick us off with a really nice broad question which is from, either from your personal perspective. I know Sarah and Kyle, both of you are farmers, or, with your Food Hub hat perspective on where are the greatest opportunities for food hubs to support our local and regional food system resiliency at this time. Anyone can jump in who's excited with an answer.
I'd love to just speak to what we experienced last year, talking about that kind of sales growth and the opportunity that exists. We shifted a lot towards retail. So some of our biggest customers are PCC, all the Hagen locations, all the cooperatives up and down I-5. With the restaurants closing, and in a lot of cases, tragically, people still needed to eat and started doing a lot more cooking from home. And our retail partners experienced a lot of sales growth. So that's kind of the shift that we made out of necessity last year, moving towards the people that were still interested and able to source local food, heavily retail. That being said, we still have a lot of sales outlets with institutional accounts, whether those are schools, corporate accounts. Although those have declined last year too, as well, with people working from home and not eating at work as much. But we've got outlets into a number of different places. I think Austin mentioned hunger relief networks. We worked closely with the Bellingham Food Bank and some other institutions as well. But really, maybe kind of to put a pin in this, one thing that I see in that shift to retail is the ability of us to really highlight and champion the resiliency of a small supply chain, resilient local food system. We found a number of customers where their kind of national supply chains broke down, especially during the pandemic, and they were coming to us, whether it was flour or vegetables or other products, and just really excited to learn what's available locally and how they can help kind of grow our farmer capacity in the near term and then long term, right, as we're all looking at kind of the coming climate chaos and all the results of that.
Yeah, I think for us too, the San Juan Islands are such a tourist economy here, and we really saw the launch of our food hub as a kind of an emergency measure to save farmers. And we also have, I should say, we don't just have farmers on our food hub. We also have restaurants that are producing food and selling it through the hub as well. We just had a lot of folks who needed a lifeline because there were no resorts opening up and there were no restaurants opening up, and our farmers market was shuttered. And we also have an aging population here. We have a lot of folks that didn't feel safe opening their farm stands. And, especially in the spring when we didn't know as much about how COVID transfer happens, we had a lot of folks who just didn't feel they could do business safely. So the resiliency just in kind of protecting the farmers and making sure that they were going to have some kind of a sales channel at all. And then as things stabilized, it ended up being flexible and people could use it in different ways that were appropriate for their business. I think it really helped out a lot of folks. And it's been interesting, like we're just now starting to see this interesting kind of seasonal wave happen where I've got one producer who they raise lamb and they've been doing it for generations on this island. They sell everything to a local resort year after year after year. Didn't happen last year, so they joined the food hub and that was great. And they, sold out of all their product. They just had another harvest date last month and they were thinking they were going to have more product to put on the food hub and they were excited about that. And it all sold, like to people that bought their product through the food hub last year, told their friends about it. All those people came directly to the farmers. So if we're looking at it from a perspective of like growing the food hub audience, like not so great, but in terms of just helping people find local food and really bolstering the business for folks who depend on this economy, it's like new stuff is bubbling up and like new resiliencies that we hadn't even realized were possible are cropping up this year. It's really fun to see.
Yeah, I would just definitely piggyback. I think Sarah and I have a lot of the similar challenges. This is a really heavy tourist economy, and the short-term effect of COVID on us. I think the opportunity that we saw as a cooperative was just like, we have an opportunity to show value here to our community, to our food system, like, let's just do it. And we did, a lot of those things that the San Juan Food Hub, I mean, we have restaurants that are selling bread on the Food Hub. That's a way for them to stay in business, to keep employees going. And then, same as far as our farmers markets go, I don't think a lot of our community realized how much of that income came from tourists, but tourists love farmers markets too, and so when COVID happened, even though the farmers markets were still running, the sales were just really, really low. And so to give those farmers an opportunity to keep moving their product, and then long term, to keep showing value, right? Like that, this is going to settle out at some point. The emergency that we're in is going to settle out. And so how do we keep showing value? And I think the way that we do that is, we keep building that communication piece with the producers and with the community. And we just, it's expensive. It's expensive to shop locally. It's expensive to, produce locally. And so for us to have that communication piece, and as a food hub, take some of those burdens off of farmers. As a farmer, I'm stretched as thin as I can be stretched, going to farmers markets and having employees set up food booths or farmers market booths. And so for me to be able to use an additional outlet that I don't have to put labor towards, I think is a huge value. And it keeps that food local still. So I think that as we grow and we grow into wholesale and we, grow into some more of these services, we can keep providing services for the producers, which will help us show value to the community. So in terms of resilience, great, those are local goods. Farmers can get to scale up, right? So one of the biggest complaints that grocery stores have on our island is, oh, we don't buy local because nobody's producing enough of it. And so there's this chicken and egg situation of like, well, they're not producing enough of it because, how do they know the grocery store is going to buy 2 tons of celeriac or whatever? And so with the food hub, we can give sort of a benchmark to producers to be able to incrementally grow their production, especially with wholesale sales. They can see a track record and then start to increase. So I think there's short-term value, and we're really excited about the long-term value.
Yeah, I would echo the same sentiments that actually everyone has touched upon. When I give sort of our 30-second speech about what we do, I often talk about use the term carpooling food into town for farmers. And I like to think we do a little bit more than that, but I think everyone here probably struggles with old vehicles breaking down, repair and maintenance on the vehicle, the refrigerator units. And I think as much as we hate doing that kind of stuff, we love the thought of aggregating it and have us being the main one that deals with that rather than every individual farm sending a truck out. And we saw it's been a very interesting year. For some farms, they've built sort of their own direct channels, whether it's off the farm or an online retail store. And I think for some, it's worked really, really great. And farmers obviously know their communities much better than we do. But I think for others, it's been a really great way to access a whole bunch of customers without doing all the back end logistics stuff themselves. So just aggregating all that work, I think, is a huge opportunity. And then another big one for us, when folks reach out to us, whether they're hunger relief organizations or larger institutions, we've often I've actually heard direct from their mouths a couple times this year, hey, we love your product, we love what you're doing, but you only have 50 bunches of carrots and we need 300, and we can't piece together your order with supplementing with another company. So what that's allowed us to do is we can go to the farmers and aggregate that supply together, which opens up all kinds of avenues for the farms. And then sometimes we'll even have customers who say, we have to go through you because, we've been told we need to use a third-party distributor, which is a little ironic because sometimes the farms themselves are bigger than our organization. But for the smaller farms, they're able to access these big customers that otherwise they just wouldn't, they have no idea how to contact the buyer and stuff. So we're really excited as we go forward, and doing a little bit of crop planning. We're really excited to take that demand that we have and be able to apply it to several small farms so everyone sort of gets a piece of the pie. So that's kind of what we're focusing on right now.
I think kind of riffing off that a little bit, Austin, that's one of the biggest benefits our producers are excited about seeing being a part of the Puget Sound Food Hub or any of these other food hubs, is that ability to find, for us to do our work as operators to find that demand in the marketplace, and then develop the systems, right, to consolidate those crops together into kind of a single offering for some of these buyers. I know like some long-term projections and commitments, that's a huge goal of our producers. And I think the way that our models can hopefully develop in the near term to allow for that kind of resiliency in the system. Also maybe a shout out, some of our best small farmers that are scaling to a mid-scale sizable wholesale operation are a part of Viva Farms. That organization's done an incredible job of bringing up producers that are a part of the Puget Sound Food Hub specifically into really professional wholesale producers in a short amount of time. So it's a community, and we're really lucky to be a part of such kind of a vibrant environment out here.
Yeah, and just
everyone. Oh, go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, I just want to re-highlight what both of you said, which is the like being the facilitator, and I think it's really important, like the infrastructure piece as well. Being able to take that infrastructure piece as the food hub for producers to scale up to a wholesale level, because as a farmer, I know of no farmers that I know of on Whidbey Island can afford or are willing to take the risk of a $30,000 or $40,000 infrastructure commitment to large walk-in storage space. And so as a food hub, we also have that ability, like Andrew was saying, to aggregate the orders, but also to, like, the terror of being a farmer and having 2 tons of perishable vegetables and nowhere to store it. If we can facilitate that, I think it's huge. So I just wanted to just sort of highlight that.
Great, thank you. I'm going to shift the order of some of our questions a bit here because we got an audience question that was related to it. But our general question was how each of you are incorporating equity into the development and growth of your food hub. And one of our attendees was asking specifically if or what measures you were taking to make your food hubs or wholesaling more accessible to BIPOC farmers who face a lot of systemic barriers to entry.
I could just say a few words about our program. So we have actually a fairly extensive food access program. And one of those programs that we are a part of is called the Farm to Table program. And we distribute grant funds through the sweetened beverage tax to underserved childcare centers around the city, who then purchase product back through our organization, just like a restaurant would. What we have found is a lot of the demand that we see through those programs, for culturally relevant crops and things that are sort of beyond our knowledge base. We've actually just gone to farmers in the area who have a lot more knowledge and familiarity. Maybe they're from the similar communities as the customers themselves, to really try to work things backwards to say, okay, folks are completely unfamiliar with kohlrabi. Let's find growers who are willing to grow stuff that fits better, with those communities. And if possible, even, folks from the same communities who already have that knowledge that we don't. So we've gone and sought out, we work with a wonderful farm from East Africa that is always giving us tips on, what their palate is, what they're interested in, and how they can grow stuff that folks are actually familiar with. So we do our best to sort of find farms that can grow those things that we're seeing demand from. I think on our end, we also do our best to, when we're seeking out new farms, we try to look to farms that maybe have had a little bit less of an advantage in terms of language barriers, access to marketing materials, all those types of things. And one of the, obviously the big things there is a language barrier. So I know Andrew can speak to this a little bit on his end too, but we do have a few Spanish speaking folks, and we just hired a couple folks on staff that are fluent in Spanish. So we're really hoping that that can kind of eliminate the back and forth, and even when it comes to texting or calling in the summer to give updates from the field. So we're working on making basically the system easier for folks who might not have all the resources that our existing farmers do.
Yeah, happy to comment on some of our development here. I think it's obviously an important issue that most of us have work to do on. Our board of directors voted and approved a change to our kind of our principles, our alignment principles, to include an equity statement. While this might sound like lip service, it's actually a really important feature. As we do our strategic planning as an organization, we look back on our aligned principles, our mission, our vision, to help guide us forward. What's the plan 3 years, 5 years from now? What do we want to achieve, and how do we get there? That's all grounded in those statements. So it's while it might sound like kind of a small step, it's an important one for the long-term trajectory of our organization. Similarly to what Austin's saying, it's been a huge hindrance for us to not have anyone on staff directly that speaks Spanish fluently. So that's something that we're having conversations about right now, and we're looking to hire and kind of augment our staff to include that. Right now, we're lucky to have resources in our community here in Mount Vernon that have helped to bridge that gap, but we don't have anyone on staff that's fluent. So that's an important development point for me to execute on here in 2021. We have a few Spanish speaking farmers that are members of the Food Hub. And we're actually looking to double that number in 2021, just through really the need of the community and those farmers being interested in selling through the Food Hub. Again, kind of, we're lucky to have the partners in the area that we are, whether it's Viva Farms or the good work that Bellingham Food Bank is doing, kind of with their goal of growing foods that are more easily identifiable for certain populations and underserved communities. There's a lot of interest in sourcing through the Food Hub for those programs. So that's something that we're intentionally and frankly unintentionally growing with based on the demand that's out there in the marketplace. I don't like to look at it this way, but if you are looking at it from just a like market accessibility perspective, it's a detriment for the Food Hub right now to not have someone that's specifically a Spanish speaker on staff. So it's important in a number of different ways. If we're talking about a triple bottom line approach to our work, it features in all of those areas. So plenty of work to do here. Just acknowledging the people on the panel and my kind of perspective and where I come from. It's an important development for us, and we're doing what we can to make that happen. Excited by the strides that we've made, and it's becoming a much more intentional process for the Food Hub.
I love to hear that, Andrew. I'm thinking similar thoughts over here, although we're way behind you guys in terms of just the number of farmers and diversity of farmers that we're serving in the San Juan Islands. I also work for our local ag guild, and we've been talking for years and trying to address the fact that there are so many barriers to getting into farming in a place where real estate is incredibly expensive, and it's incredibly hard to get amendments out to the islands. So we have a lot of barriers in place, and one of the things that's been identified as a barrier is the lack of easy access to a large enough market to really make a go of it as a farmer here in the San Juans. And so there's a way in which I see establishing the Food Hub as a really important move for lowering those access barriers. The fact that you can come in as a new farmer and plug into something like the Food Hub, where we market your product for you and help you just get it posted every week, and you have total control over the amount that you're selling, but that you can just plug into a ready-made market is going to be really great for beginning farmers that are coming into the San Juans, as well as folks who are looking to hand over, farm succession kinds of things. It's a really important piece of the puzzle here. And we are also trying to address equity and who's able to access local foods. Our food hub has done a lot of partnering this year with a variety of nonprofits and also our county health and community services. We got permission to run the Farmers Market Nutrition Program, which is funded with state dollars, through the food hub so that people could buy on the food hub instead of in person at the farmers market. We've worked with a Veggie RX program that's doing distributions, buying through the food hub as well, kind of acting as a wholesaler and then distributing using our infrastructure. And I'm excited to do a lot more of that because there is a lot of need here in San Juan County, and there's a lot of work to do on sort of putting the pieces together, but I'm feeling more and more confident that we're getting all the right community partners together to start to address these important issues.
Yeah, so our island is not hugely diverse, unfortunately. It's just the reality is that it's just predominantly white. Farming's hard, and anybody chases farming, is going for a lifestyle. But the reality is, white people got all the land first. I mean, that's just the reality of the history of our country. So the majority of people trying to enter the space as new farmers, that's the majority of where you see the, BI post POC community trying to enter. And I think one thing as a Whidbey Island Grown Cooperative, which is steering our food hub, we've sort of, there's a lot of issues with the farming community, and they're not, I don't think, mostly intentional, but farming's hard, and a lot of people are suspicious of new people trying to gain access to the market or new outlets. They, because of the nature of farming, they might think that can push them out. And so our job as a cooperative is to encourage new people to join the marketplace. And part of the other, the food hub is great for that in terms of access to the market, but we've also launched a buyers club, which Sarah was saying, getting amendments, getting fertilizer, getting feed, things like that. This buyers club is going to serve as the sort of the facilitator on the back end. So the buyers club will facilitate the wholesale purchasing of amendments and feed and stuff like that for producers. And so I think the biggest thing that we have to do is we have to sort of eliminate this idea of like a new farmer as competition. I mean, the last three panelists that just spoke talked about what those producers bring in terms of diversity of product and diversity of ideas. And so, trying to get this idea of like, oh, if a new farmer comes in and sells $100 worth of tomatoes, then I can't sell $100 worth of tomatoes is sort of a garbage way of thinking that we need to try and do away with. And I think if we can encourage new farmers and we can support them, through facilitation, through market access, through, potentially even shared equipment purchases that the co-op can sort of facilitate. I would hope that a product of that is seeing our diversity increase, because we definitely need more diversity in our farming community and on our island in general.
I think a couple of follow-up comments and questions from the audience on this topic. First, thank you, Yolimar, who pointed out that that was the lands here were traditionally stewarded by the indigenous communities who had a rich agricultural history of their own. So related to that, two follow-up questions were, if any of you have relationships with indigenous communities in your area that you're incorporating into your work with the Food Hub, and are you finding that your buyers are seeking to purchase specifically from BIPOC producers that sell through your Food Hub?
I'll just comment to say that we have definitely had organizations that reach out specifically looking to purchase from BIPOC farmers, but also they're interested in the fact that they're BIPOC, but also just like the rest of our farmers, also interested in their farming practices and the sustainability and the stewardship of the land. So I think one thing I just want to comment on, and I don't know who exactly is all in the audience, but I was part of a really, I thought a really great panel a few years back, and I think it was hosted by King County, that was an open forum for new immigrant farmers to join and learn about the different insurance requirements and literally just learn, unfortunately, just how litigious our country is. But some of these requirements before they even dive in, because sometimes it's so much different here in America than where other folks come from in terms of, literally just paperwork and all the requirements needed to just grow and sell food. So there's some great resources out there between Snow Valley, Tilth, and others, but if there's anyone from the county or the city of Seattle that would be interested in hosting something like that again, I would definitely be interested in participating. But we have had customers specifically ask, not only for culturally relevant products, but specifically for BIPOC farmers, and sometimes those that specifically relate to the products they're looking for. So another good example is we have a farmer that's originally from the Oaxacan region that is specifically planted out certain varieties of crops for different organizations, which we're really happy to be part of bridging that gap. So.
Commenting on some of those questions, Reese, we are experiencing some pull-through of demand from our customers for BIPOC products, whether it's farmers or value-added products. So that does exist in the marketplace. It seems like it's gotten stronger in the 2 years that I've been a part of the Puget Sound Food Hub. There's more intention behind our customers. So that's, a development there, an exciting development there. There was a comment in the chat about some resources for communities looking to start a food hub. I've got a couple of comments there. We had a Hmong community member attend our most recent board of directors meeting to experience what that's like and what our kind of governance structure experience is like. So that's a resource that we have available if anyone in different communities or representing different people is interested in seeing how we organize ourselves. Get in touch with me. Happy to provide that as a resource. And I think kind of specifically speaking to the history of the development of the Puget Sound Food Hub, the Northwest Ag Business Center is a huge part of how the Puget Sound Food Hub got started. And there's a lot of resources available in those organizations or in that organization to help communities advocate for themselves and develop kind of agricultural economic engines in the region.
Sarah, Kyle, anything that you want to add before we move on to the next question?
Yeah, I was just trying to type in the chat, but I may as well just use my mouth. We do have a few producers who are tribal members or BIPOC. I haven't seen them, to answer the question, I haven't seen them like choosing to center that identity in their interactions with customers, just in terms of what they choose to say about their farm and their practices on our website. And I haven't seen, I can't think of a time when a customer has come to me and asked specifically for information like that to guide their purchasing. We are in the final stages of bringing a new seafood producer on who buys from tribal folks in Northwest Washington. I think it's incredibly important that we are making those connections. I would like to see those connections strengthened through the work that we're doing. And I think that I feel as though in our community, I am starting to hear more people talking about looking to make those kind of conscious choices as purchasers. And I hope to see that grow in their food choices as well.
Reese, if I could just add one more comment. One thing that we have been speaking about lately is we have on our product listings for our different farms, we have, I believe the Puget Sound Food Hub and some of the others actually might have this as well. We have little attributes that say USDA organic or salmon safe, various certifications. And one of the things that we've heavily considered is putting like an attribute for a BIPOC farmer. I will say, as a company run by two white men, I think that there's a fine line between being transparent and giving folks the information they need and feeling exploitive. And so I am always interested and open to hear from folks of all backgrounds, how we might do that in a way that's genuine and that's transparent, but that doesn't feel like we're just exploiting someone for more sales. And I think one way that we're going to consider is, possibly we do a little adjusting of our margins or whatever it may be on the back end, so that we can sort of fairly bring those folks into the mix and give them maybe an advantage that they never had before. So always open to suggestions on that and doing it in a way that's succinct with being more inclusive and equitable. So
thank you all. Yeah, lots of room for improvement in our engagement with communities of color, with the Indigenous stewards of place and Native food sovereignty. But I'm on a personal note and from a sustainable connections lens, I'm pleased to see more grounded conversations regionally, not just in food hubs, but across the food sector, of the realities of the barriers that are faced currently, and looking at ways that we can bring our power and solutions to addressing that and share access. So my next question is switching gears a little bit, but maybe not. For each of you, how would you ideally like to see collaboration between food hubs and between producers who are supplying the food hubs? And I'm gonna pick on Kyle to start because I know that he has some great things to say about this.
Yeah, I think this sort of goes back to, this concept of competition in sort of a negative connotation. I think that as long as we're ethical and, collaborating with each other, and I think that, competition and cooperation can go hand in hand in an ethical way, and that can grow, both the market and the access to the food hubs for producers. And so I think one of my big concerns is communicating that, my farmers, if they see an opportunity with the Puget Sound Food Hub or the San Juan Island Food Hub, they should absolutely take it if that's right for their business. And there should be no, harboring of any ill will. And in fact, I think that, something that's really exciting to consider is that potentially we could link these food hubs through logistics chains and send products back and forth, which just makes everyone that much better. I think that, the competition aspect has been something that I think is probably universal. I definitely know it's a problem on our island, so I think that we can sort of set the example as food hubs. Theoretically, you could say we're direct competition for each other, but if we can set a good example of cooperation and competition and making each other better through healthy, ethical competition, and also sharing with each other, sharing ideas and sharing, logistics and stuff like that, I think we can, one, sort of start to dismantle that obsolete mindset of zero-sum competition, and two, we can just continue to grow this really resilient web that we can create in our region, so that farmers have consistent access to markets.
I love it, Kyle. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe just briefly from me, if we can, one of the things that I personally like and that I think our membership likes about the Puget Sound Food Hub is it's a way to highlight the value of product for your community grown by that same community. And by finding ways to work together and link together, we can continue that value proposition all the way through this chain, even if we do end up linking with products going from you know, even Spokane out at Link Food Hub out in Spokane all the way through the Food Hub to Whidbey, or down to Austin, down in Seattle, or wherever that ends up going. It seems like by strengthening and decentralizing the systems, we will find some advantages for local resiliency, for our small farmers to continue growing their capacity, right? It's to me it's kind of not just about finding sales in the short term for our small producers. It's about growing the capacity of our region to feed ourselves, right? In you know, 5-10 years down the road. So by linking together, I think there's more of an opportunity to find marketplaces and growers within our specific region here. One way, this might be getting a little far out there, but one way that I like to think about it is that if your food is grown by people that you share your water, your air, and your land with directly, there's going to be more of an intentional connection and more care given to how those resources are maintained and taken care of too in the short and long term. So linking food systems by geography does make sense to me in a lot of special ways.
I would just add to, I think for us being a smaller hub with generally smaller producers, relative to the grand scheme of things, and even relative to the Puget Sound Food Hub, we've found great success in using Andrew and the Food Hub as a resource to cover, you know, if we're short on certain staples that folks want, or to help us get us through the winter. We've been able to either you know, supply additional product, supplemental product from the Food Hub. And I think another big opportunity is, Andrew and I were just on the phone last week talking about the idea of sort of matching customers with our scale. So I know that the Puget Sound Food Hub has a much higher order minimum than us. And so it's a great opportunity if someone says, hey, I'd love access to this local food, you know, Andrew and his team can push them our way, and vice versa. If there's folks that are way beyond our scale, but I know that Andrew and his team can serve, I'll push them that way. And it works better for the whole food system and everyone involved. So that's a big opportunity I think we'll be working on developing throughout the rest of this year. So.
Excellent. What else do you wish that folks working in the food system in your region knew about food hubs, or about your food hub in particular?
Maybe just quickly, something that came to mind kicking that off, where I think I opened it up by saying we source exclusively from Western Washington. Our producers, we had a really vibrant conversation at our annual member meeting. Our producers are interested in finding other growers that align with our stated principles, mission, and values, that grow products that we can't grow here. So what does that look like long term? You know, I think a big part of our value proposition is that we're Western Washington. Is there an opportunity to find things like stone fruit, like Austin mentioned, in Eastern Washington, to supplement some great growers that we have here in Western Washington with products that just can't be grown in our region? I think we're open to that, and kind of interested in supporting people, like our mission says, right? Championing small scale family growers that are looking for a direct connection with their customers. So I think maybe just throwing it out there that we're interested in seeing whom we can serve in the long term, and how that kind of interacts with the Food Hub's mission right now. I kind of view the Food Hub as one sales outlet for our given producers. A lot of them have CSAs, a lot of them go direct to certain customers, a lot of them have some other outlets at farmers markets. So if we can do a great job at serving our niche for those producers and our sales channels, I think, again, just being a part of the overall local food system web, we'll be doing our jobs right.
Yeah, I see our Food Hub being part of the connective tissue of the region, just in terms of building resiliency, building a better, more equitable local food economy. There's a lot of infrastructure challenges start coming to light when you do this work, and we're really seeing a need for more kind of community food centers that have refrigerator space, that have freezer space, that's accessible to farmers who don't have the resources to build that on their own land, or they have leased land and can't build it. But starting to think about how the food hub can be part of coordinating those efforts to build that community infrastructure so that we can have more kind of vertical integration within the community itself. How we can be starting to think about bringing in related trades like butchery and helping farmers to collaborate and cooperate, get enough scale to support things like certified facilities for slaughtering animals. Those kinds of things, like this food hub work is really, it's really that, like the hub part of the name is important. I feel like it's not just the farm to table piece, but there's all these other avenues and the opportunity to be working with food banks and family resource centers and kind of bringing these services all together so that it's a lot easier for people to navigate the system on both sides, both as consumers, both as recipients of benefits, as producers themselves, finding ways to create new community around food that's actually effective and can streamline a lot of duplicative admin. And there's a lot that we're just starting to nibble at the edges of here, and I'm really excited to see how it can grow and how we can link up regionally to do better at getting local food to people.
I would agree, Sarah. I would add, I think someone asked a question about advice about starting a food hub. And I think my biggest piece of advice would be that you've got to be in for the long haul. And Sarah, you had mentioned early on the idea of, folks using the food hub and then connecting with the customer and then going straight there. And I think given our geography, that's definitely been a challenge over the years. And I think that we've found both on the producer and on the customer end, we've been able to identify folks and continue to identify organizations that are bought in and understand that, their first year selling through the hub may not, or selling through us might not be the most lucrative thing in the world, but the more name recognition they can build, the more our customers get to know them. It's just, it's a snowball effect, and I think it builds on itself year after year. So, to any producers in the audience, I would say I wouldn't go in using a food hub, or to anyone starting a food hub, I would have real clear language with your farmers. I don't think it needs to be a legal contract or anything, but basically the idea that we're at this together and we're building this together, and making direct connections with one or two customers right now will be nowhere near the worth of the connections you'll build if we stick together and do that. And that's not to say that direct connections don't make sense. I know tons of farmers in the area that do an amazing job doing direct sales. And there's even instances in which geographically it doesn't make sense for us to serve those customers. So we'll connect farms directly, and that's amazing too. But I would just say, I think the farms and the customers that have really stuck it out with us, I think I would hope they see great benefit and value in having this sort of this connected food system at their disposal. So it's a long slog, but once the momentum builds, it's well worth it. So
I have a couple of quick audience questions to try and get through. See if we can get through all of them. I had a question specifically for Andrew. One of the audience members was wondering who your south of Tacoma cross-dock partner was.
Nice. Yeah, we work with a couple of different people. Pete's Milk does a lot of our cross-docking down to Olympia because we don't have trucks going all the way down there. It'd be great, Austin or any of you guys, if you guys end up going that far south and look at building a route to keep that within the food hub realm. But finding people and utilizing routes that exist to get access to markets for our farmers is something that we're excited to be pursuing.
A second question again for you, Andrew, is for the Puget Sound Food Hub as a first-year farm, are there any support is there any support, for example, possible storage space / wholesale?
It's a good question. We've kind of wrestled with this, and some of this was done before my time at the Food Hub. Kind of the way that we've found to be able to operate is we kind of serve as an outlet for farmers that have achieved somewhat of a wholesale scale on their own in a few different ways. So there are some great kind of incubators out there that can help get up to the speed where you're able to have basically an anchor account. Is something that's really necessary and beneficial to have success at the Puget Sound Food Hub. We've got a couple of different sales outlets, and I won't take our time down that track, but to have an anchor wholesale account is really important for success at the Puget Sound Food Hub. We do have plenty of resources available, but not a ton of capacity to kind of help bring people along in that way. I think there are a lot of organizations in our region that exists to do exactly that. And then once you're at that scale, we have access to a good amount of markets to hopefully make a viable sales outlet through the Food Hub exist for you. Kind of to your question about storage space, we just doubled our freezer capacity and increased our walk-in cooler capacity by about 50%. So we do have some storage space that's accessible and used by our members currently.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm going to share one more question that was shared in the chat that is, I think, too big and too important of a question to really be tackled in the last 3 minutes or so that we have together. So I'm putting it out to the whole group to hear, because I think it's an important question, not just for our panelists or for us at Sustainable Connections, but for all the attendees to ask themselves and reflect on, and invite our panelists and audience members to share their answers to this in the Slack community so that we can support each other. So the question was specifically talking about the harm that has happened to BIPOC producers through tokenizing in the regional food system. And the person was wondering what each of us are doing to make amends and repair relationships and shift power and resources, not just offer access in the way that seems best to us. I recognize I'm opening a whole can of worms, but the question was too important. Not a ton of time to answer it here, unless one of the panelists has something they want to share really quickly, but with a hope that we can share some more answers and get attendee contributions in the Slack channel on that.
Great. I mean, one thing that if we're talking about bringing people to the table and getting a seat at the table, we had our first elected Spanish-speaking board member this year at the Puget Sound Food Hub, and we've got translation services at all of our board meetings. So I hope that's kind of a tangible answer about a change that's happened at the Puget Sound Food Hub in kind of the last year about access and real results, bringing people in to have a voice.
So I have a response typed out, but I think I'll just go ahead and share it here. But one thing that we've always done at Farm Stand, and we continue to plan to do, is spend the additional time on the back end to onboard farms who might not have access to the same resources as their fellow aspiring farmers, even if that means less sales potential for our organization. So there's a lot of large established farms out there that have plenty of extra product and they're selling it very cheap, and it would sort of be the easy route for us to go. But we always try to be very intentional about taking the extra time. If it is a language barrier, sometimes we realize that there might be a bit of an impasse until we are able to come across additional resources. But it's hard. It is hard to sort of convey this to all of our customers and the public, but we do try to go above and beyond to not just prioritize farms that we think are going to be the most profitable or sell the most product through us, and give folks that are under-resourced a shot and a seat at the table. So that's kind of what we're doing behind the scenes, but I totally understand and want to be sympathetic to the tokenizing as well. So
I not to dominate the time, but just to comment as I'm self-reflecting on my response. I'm curious, and I'd love feedback. Get in touch with me if my answer to that question was in fact kind of tokenizing in a way. So if there are ways that you can help me better understand and serve kind of questions like this, I would love that feedback.
Thank you all. This was a really juicy conversation. Really appreciated everyone jumping in and to answer both our prepared questions and then the really engaged audience participation. Thank you to all of our panelists who joined to share about their Food Hub project.